Greetings, everybody. Keith here. Hoping everybody's having a good day, enjoying life, living life, loving life. Want to remind everybody, hit the like, share, and subscribe button. There is a PayPal link. Oops. Where we go here? There is a PayPal link down there for anybody who wants to share some love. Every little bit is appreciated. Please use friends and family, of course. And the StreamYard link is down there for anybody that wants to join the panel. We're going to try doing this stream that I tried to do the other day again. I was having problems with lagging issues and couldn't play videos, and I've had problems. I hope I have it figured out. It seems like it. So let's get into it. We're talking about You're Fired, the mass firings through the Health and Human Services and public education system, as well as other departments and agencies of the government because of this DOGE stuff, and backtracking on DEI and getting people in there that are qualified. And this is on the heels of my last video series where I had 7 videos talking about the public education indoctrination and manning one's post as far as it goes to knowledge and education and taking up positions in these government agencies and offices with the competency yourself, instead of depending upon other people. So when you learn how to set your house in order and you have a certain standing, then you can man that post. But it all takes knowledge. So let's get into it. How you doing, John?
Hey, bro. How you doing?
I am well. I am well. Hopefully I got things figured out with the computer and we can do this again tonight.
Well, that's all right. I mean, the guy that said, you're fired, I mean, he had fake implants, so let's get it real. All right, let's go.
All right. So here we have mass firings at Health and Human Services, education departments after Supreme Court rulings. So let's get into it.
Thousands of people working across U.S. federal health agencies are waking up without a job.
I'm struggling with missing teeth, and that's why I'm here. I wouldn't have done anything like this. I would have.
As the Department of Health and Human Services is moving forward with mass firings. The Trump administration made the move really less than a week after the Supreme Court gave them the green light.
Greetings, Russ.
A letter to employees now read in part. Here's the quote.
Greetings, everyone.
I notified that you were officially separated from HHS at the close of business on July 14th. Thank you for your service to the American people. CNN's Meg Terrell tracking this and has been for quite some time with the very latest now. Meg, what is the latest here?
Yeah, Kate, I mean, these are employees who were told April 1st for most of them that they were going to lose their jobs. This was part of a huge reorganization of the Department of Health and Human Services that the department said encompassed 10,000.
And notice that was April 1st, April Fool's Day, of course. And that notice was given a while ago. So the firings are now taking place. And this is the a portion of what I think they were talking about with the deep state and draining the swamp. And I think, and of course, according to my research and interpretation of that, it's because of things like the DEI and the child abuse protection laws and all these things that this system seems to perpetrate in order to maintain that control edge over the population in that cognitive dissonance. And it all comes down to that public education. My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge.
Employees who are going to be laid off.
That's how you qualify to be able to maintain and man that post so you don't get fired.
And that was on top of another 10,000 they said had already left voluntarily or were leaving voluntarily, bringing the size of HHS down from about 82,000 to 62,000. Now, this included about 3,500 employees from the Food and Drug Administration, 2,400 from the CDC, 1,200 from the National Institutes of Health, and 300 from the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services.
And doesn't once mention the 82,000 or 86,000, whichever it was or wherever it is, 80-some thousand that were hired for the IRS. So it's a displacement here and filling up and gorging here. So don't think about it as a downsizing. They're opening up certain things, but depleting others. And we have to look at the scale of each. This is why I talk about don't believe me, don't believe your neighbor, don't believe the government, for crying out loud, don't believe your mother. Do your research so you know. And in that research, you have to research both sides of the tracks, guys.
There were court challenges to these layoffs, and they were paused as that played out. And as you mentioned, there was a Supreme Court decision last week. HHS took that as the signal now to move forward with this, and they sent out that email late in the afternoon yesterday saying by close of business that day, these folks no longer worked at HHS.
So some of the employees that were in limbo are still in limbo, though, right, Meg? As there's a separate court challenge that's playing out?
Yeah, there's another court case called New York versus Kennedy. This is a court challenge that was brought by state attorneys general, and that is still playing out. And under that, the Department of Health and Human Services says that there are some units across federal health agencies that are not being carried out with the separation. So that includes 6 units at the CDC, including units focused on HIV prevention, smoking, the Division of Reproductive Health, the NIOSH, or the Institute focused on occupational safety and health, and other ones at FDA. That's the Center for Tobacco Products, includes the Office of Head Start, and a Division of Data and Technical Analysis. And this really is sort of in court limbo right now. Those
Division of Data and Technical Analysis. That is your gateway, folks. Because like I've said before, it's the data elements that you keep giving them. And that's what I'm talking about in correcting the records. When you recognize your own error, you have to go back and fix them. And I'm going to tell you, I can't remember where the quote comes from at the moment, but you can look it up. And it is, a man is never more honest with himself when he admits that he himself is a liar. And it doesn't matter that you did it intentionally or not. The fact is that you laid lies into that record. You bared false witness. You have to repent and correct them.
folks are not being separated, but it kind of shows you the
You have to analyze that data first before you give it to them to put it in their technical analysis system.
sort of chaos that we're seeing across this plan to reorganize HHS. We also learned over the past few months, some people have been rehired. Their firings were rescinded and they were not affected by these layoffs. And so this continues to play out, and we don't expect this to be the end of the story.
And more to come. My goodness, Meg, thank you so much.
Today, President Trump is moving forward with his plan to dismantle the education department after the Supreme Court's conservative majority greenlit the mass firings he's been trying to carry out since he came into office. Hundreds of workers at the Department of Education will be out of a job, and the goal is to virtually shut it down, even without congressional approval. The question that parents and teachers across the country are asking right now is, what does it mean for their schools and the students? CNN's Sunlen Safadi is digging into the answers to those questions. What comes next, Sunlen?
Well, Dana, this is essentially a green light. All systems go for the department to start winding down the agency. That, of course, is President Trump's stated goal. And it's worth looking at the numbers of 4,100 workers at the start of this year at the Department of Education. That is going to be cut in half with the Supreme Court ruling saying that the administration can go forth and do that. And with such a massive reduction, of course, education experts are raising major red flags and really setting off the alarms on.
See what?
Isn't this one reason why governments created computers? They love data. They love records. They love manipulation of the data. Maybe it could be.
Well, it's a matter of communication. Rising up against any tongue that would place judgment against you and condemn it. They take heed to that, and they have to know all the languages. So they're very interested in having a reach into every venue for every kind of coding, no matter what it is.
Right. That's what
You know what's interesting?
Computer language and all that. They invented computers. So I don't know. It could be I'm thinking too much here.
Well, I think you're actually onto something there, John, because I saw something of Combs method, and that's a language that these computers communicate with.
Yeah, it's the computer system is set up kind of like English. It's so that people can communicate with computers. The distinction here is that the computers have a language that you have to be trained in, and that is a specific technical language for commerce and internet communications. Whereas our regular language is English and French and German, and they have their base foundations in the culture.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So the computer language is able to take all cultural languages into one international database, and it will correlate somewhere so that it can be computable.
Right. Computer to computer. It's like a human can't be involved unless it's like an agent and it does command line.
Correct.
It was supposed to be like entities talking to each other. Right.
Correct. I got into not a panel discussion, but I was down in chat on another channel, and they were talking about privacy laws on the internet and stuff. And this is the distinction here as well, as your address when it comes to privacy. If you've got a internet business, your address for that internet business is your IP address. It is not your own private address at your home. And people think that if they have a contract with you on the internet somewhere, that they have a right, an entitlement to access your private information as to where you're conducting your business from in the physical presence. And that's not what the internet is about. It's about that electronic communication, and that's where it remains. All of your business information is there. That's why I have a .art site. It's not commercial.
That's why the internet is international.
Correct.
How the agency can carry out its duties. So it's worth going back and looking at what exactly the agency does and what it does now. Now, the agency.
And an interesting note there, just to correlate my research on the Postal Service, this is what I've been telling you. The Postal Service is the global monopoly on data automated clearinghouses. They're information clearinghouses. And they're the ones that monopolize the automated clearinghouses for the data exchanges.
So they're basically chief internal auditors.
Correct. They're the account holders.
CIA.
They're the record holders.
does dole out billions of dollars in federal grants and funding to K through 12 schools. It manages federal student loans. It investigates discrimination through the Office of Civil Rights. It researches reading and math levels, providing important data points on education systems that are in place and if they're working. It does not in any way dictate curriculum. It doesn't set it. It doesn't tell teachers in schools what to teach or certify teachers. And it does not establish graduation requirements. Those are all set in school and local school boards at the state level. It's also
at your state and local level. See, people think education is compulsory, and it's not. There is no federal mandate for public education. Okay? It is a General Education Provisions Act. And that's it. It does not mandate that you have to take upon that provision. It's merely mandating that the government has to provide some sort of public education. It does not say you have to attend. Nowhere is it congressionally approved. Everything is done at your state and local levels, and they have no power to mandate anything without congressional approval.
worth remembering here, Dana, as well, that the Secretary of Education, Linda McMahon, she
Don't tell me.
You got your camera off?
I do. Or no, I don't. Let me check here. I thought I had this fixed. And it's doing it to me again. I can't even get to my StreamYard screen. There we go.
Hear you.
Yeah, it's going to let me do what I need to do, but it's lagging. And so now I'm on the StreamYard thing, but damn it.
Interesting.
Okay.
You sure your camera's off?
No, that's what I said. It's not off. I'm trying to get to it, but my computer is lagging.
Oh, okay. There you go.
She has been very clear that these reductions in staff, they're just one part of the larger changes she wants to see to the department. They will move many of the functions to other departments, SBA taking over student loans, special ed, HHS, and today, just a few hours ago, Dana, they announced Department of Labor will take over adult education, so effectively breaking apart, moving the functions to other agencies to effectively dismantle their own.
Yeah, I mean,
moving the functions to other agencies. So again, we're talking about the General Education Provisions Act at the federal level, not the states. Okay, so even when the states still try to say they provide their own public education laws and stuff, they can't mandate that it's absolutely compulsory. They cannot take charge. They cannot take charge over a child against the objection of either parent for anything. Go ahead.
But it is mandatory, Keith, for their entities.
Correct. For the federal employees and agents, those residents, it is compulsory, but that is at a minimum. So if the federal agents and officers want to provide a private education for them, they can do so. But if they don't do that, then they must bring their children up in knowledge at a minimum, even if they hand their children over to a state entity for that public education. See, that's what my parents did. They provided that public education for me as federal employees. But at the same time, they also instituted that private education at home through homeschooling. I learned all about mechanics and gardening and health and diet and flowers and medicinal herbs and stuff through my mom and dad, canning and preservation and cooking and all of the stuff that you would need to know either as a single male or a single female. The general basics of a good base foundation of being able to be competent to manage your own affairs across the board. I had a paper out when I was 10 years old, for crying out loud, learning how to do that single entry ledgering. It wasn't until I was an adult and got into this legal research that I realized there's a double entry ledgering, and that was my whole problem throughout my entire life. No one ever taught me that, and if I'd understood that at the beginning, this whole world that I've been living in would have changed simply because of me and what I did and how I affected it around me. We have to understand how important and powerful that education is.
She was literally nominated, and during her confirmation hearing admitted that she was going into this job at the department in order to help get rid of that department that she is now running. Thank you so much for breaking that down, Son. Appreciate it.
And a note here, this Linda McMahon is Ed McMahon, not Ed McMahon. What's the McMahon that does the wrestling? It's all about it. Vince McMahon. All about the marketing campaign and stuff like that. And that's what she's there for. Okay. She's going to start promoting this public education as a good thing for you again, because again, they know it's not compulsory and they need you to partake in it. That's her only position. She is not an educator. She's a marketer. It's a sales plot, propaganda. Understand what I'm trying to tell you, folks. Take control of your own education so you can turn around and instill that education knowledge into your children so they can go forth with wisdom.
And my panel is back now. You know, the Department of Education, we're going to talk broadly about the cuts across the board in a second, but the Department of Education is one of the most interesting because it's relatively new when you look at our government. It's only been in place since Jimmy Carter. And really since then, Republicans have been talking about getting rid of it because...
Yeah, since Jimmy Carter, that's when they introduced the concise English and all of that. General Education Provisions Act, concise English, things like that, to instill in American people the institution of knowledge and its importance. But they never made it compulsory, ever.
They say it's unnecessary Washington bureaucracy, and it can be done, as someone was saying, probably what happened now, through various other agencies, and because so much of education funding and policy is already done at the state and local level.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is one of those things. This has been a longstanding Republican goal, but it has not happened, likely because others were afraid of the repercussions of doing it. Because when you start talking about funding, when you start talking about student loans, you're touching a lot of people's lives, right? And so the question is, it could be done, or it can be done by these other agencies, but will it be done well? And how is that transition going to work? And so...
But will it be done well? And how is that transition going to work? And this is why, again, I say it's important, that education, so that if you want these kind of activities to go on and have them have a good effect and do well, then I urge you to start partaking in it so you have the proper oversight and internal oversight, people that are involved. People just giving up their responsibility and saying, okay, the government's responsible for it and they'll do it for me and they'll provide for me and they'll protect for me. That's bullshit. You have to get off your ass and start doing things.
It's another example of like Republicans, they've caught the car now. Like, how is it going to be in practice? And that's the problem. When funding doesn't go out the way it should, or when loans, something's not right with them, that's going to be in the hands of this administration. You can't point it.
And one thing I want to point out here, folks, is it takes no amount of money, none, to educate your own children. It takes time and participation yourself, and it's free. So the more time you spend with your children, it would only pose that you would spend more time educating them. Your true responsibility, men and women. See, the mother's supposed to be the caregiver and the internal educator. The father's the one that's supposed to bring the education from the outside world to the house, telling them about the the current events and news and upcoming events and the historical results of things in past. Understand your roles and start partaking in them, men and women.
Anyone else. These are your decisions.
And also, I don't want to lose sight of the fact that the Supreme Court did this. Yeah. Even the administration, you can correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think they went in thinking that they would be able to do this in any other way except Congress, which passed.
And again, I only pose this as a strong, strong opinion, deep-seated by my own firsthand experiences and research. This is not educational advice. It's not medical advice. It's not political advice. It's not legal advice. Just my opinion, folks.
The statute creating the department would pass a statute dismantling it. And now the Supreme Court stepped in and said, never mind, you can do this. I mean, obviously they didn't say dismantle, but that's effectively what they're allowed to do. They did so, the Supreme Court, without a majority opinion. But there was a minority opinion, and it was very clear that 3 liberal justices were not happy. The dissent was written by Justice Sotomayor, who said, in part, when the executive publicly announces its intent to break a law and then executes on that promise, it is the judiciary's duty to check that lawlessness, not expedite it. That hands the executive the power to repeal statutes by firing all those necessary to carry them out. Was the administration surprised even at their luck or victory here?
I don't know if surprise is the right word. I think that now it's actually kicked them into action in the sense.
And I think that's the thing with the DEI I was talking about. If we have people that aren't qualified to be in those positions, it doesn't matter whether you think the executive is overbearing or not. If the people aren't qualified, and that's what they're basing it on, they don't need congressional approval to overrule statutes and stuff. It's called good faith and fair dealings and competency. And if you take a job and you're not competent, but you keep doing it and telling people you're just doing your job and deflecting everything to your boss, that's getting a paycheck for literally just telling everybody I'm just doing my job while not doing your job.
That they were waiting this stuff out
Right.
and weren't sure when
And-
or
and
if
he-
it was going to happen. I think to your
They
larger
also
point, I mean,
grade their own papers when they get a review half the time. So even if
Oh yeah, that's
know-
that internal investigation. We're gonna investigate ourselves, and we'll let you know how we come out. And that's the given norm for the agencies and officers and stuff. But when it comes to the public, we're supposed to be innocent until proven guilty. But no, we're guilty until proven innocent, and nobody can prove us innocent except ourselves because everybody else is bearing false witness, and we don't realize we're the first ones that allowed it. That's what I'm telling you. You have to repent. You have to recognize your errors and change your ways, not your identity, because that identity is never going to be true. No one knows your name. That name is fucking hearsay, people. Comprehend that.
they have known since he was elected that a lot of what he was going to want to get done in terms of his agenda, which this is part of, was stuff that was going to have to eventually go through the Supreme Court. And they were confident that once they got past the lower courts, that he would be able to get his agenda in place and that the Supreme Court would rule in his favor, largely because he appointed so many conservative justices last tenure in there. But I do want to say, I mean, I think to your point, I really couldn't agree with you more, which is that this now has turned into, especially with the Supreme Court ruling, where they are actually having to act on it. And I think that it's really hard. You know, Democrats and Republicans think there are problems with the education system in America and with the Department of Education. Like, that's across the board. But the question is, do you have enough infrastructure in place to replace the current system? It's obviously what we saw the same thing that happened with Obamacare. I mean, I know those are very different, but when they wanted to actually repeal it, there was nothing that was going to fill that gap. And are they prepared for the gap that this is going to leave? And I don't know the answer to that yet.
Sorry for the ads there. So what do you think, guys? Do we really need that overbearing Health and Human Services and Department of Education, or is it better that they downsize it? Because that's what I'm advocating for, is the downsizing of government and the filling of positions with people that are more qualified, that can take upon those extra duties. Go ahead.
Absolutely, I agree with the downsizing.
Absolutely, Keith. I mean, look.
I think it's been way overinflated for far too long already.
Do you guys see where I get the idea of downsizing the government by manning your post yourself, becoming the competent party to be head of household, to set thine house in order, so you don't indoctrinate your children into paying tribute to a false patriarch, and bring that child up in the ways of the Lord so he shall not falter? I think that's a strong foundational element for a good, strong Christian nation, as they say it is.
Well, I think with that comes, some government, some sort of leadership and forward movement and progress, but very little. It'd take very little, and it does stem from the head of that house and those teachings. As long as they're following the proper teachings, then you can properly lead for that forward progress.
Yeah, and that's the part of the diversity of the communities that we have to learn to understand. There are people, like I've said, there are not many people that can do what I've done and just quit the job and banking and all that and said, okay, I'm going to stick to barter and trade and learn how to operate myself in private. And this comes down to a lot of research to learn how to construct your contracts and your trusts. And a lot of people don't understand that, and nor will they take upon the time to do their research to do so. But they will do the research to become competent of certain public offices. And that's where we have to understand that even though you might have the competence of the duties of that office, you have to be competent of that contract and the trust. And that's where most people fail. We have to start learning that. Go ahead.
Well, wouldn't you think, we were just saying the head of that house and those proper teachings and the proper leadership and everything. But within that leadership, this business that we all talk about, wouldn't there only be one business and that leadership is focused on one mission?
No, you have one mission. No, you have one mission with.
Well, right, the mission, and that's what they should lead by. But
and that's right, and that's what leads the rest of the business operators. And understand, if you have a trust set up, or a revocable trust, and you understand, you can name many people as trustees of that trust. So what happens if I develop a trust and I name both John and Russ as co-trustees along with me? Now, John developed his trust, and he also names Russ and another man as co-trustees of his trust. Russ does the same thing, and he names me and another man as co-trustees of his trust. Now we have this trust situation set up, and each one of them are operating in a banking environment with their contracts and their trusts. Each one of them is operating with a banking aspect as it relates to the assets that each one of them has regulatory enforcements of. As a trustee, you have duties in international law to maintain the assets for the beneficiaries. Nothing else can interfere with that, not even the federal fiat currency system. So if the people that I'm involved with in a trust decide that we want to make our fair exchanges through our very own assets rather than a fiat currency or documentation of a money script, then we can do it through the contracts themselves.
That's just identifying the spirit of the exchange.
Correct. Not the identity of the people that are involved. Right. It has nothing to do with them. It has to do with the exchange, the actions, The actions speak louder than your words, folks.
And leadership would be different in the exchange, but from that aspect, you'd
Right,
be
because
a
it's like,
representation of or something.
right, because you're as a leader, you're representing a body. So it's like the First Amendment. I say I have the freedom of expression myself singularly, and that's very important. But exponentially more important is the rest of the body of the people that have a right to know. So as a trustee and having that responsibility on the one side is a great duty. But the ultimate duty is in the transfer of that asset to the beneficiaries, which they have a right to exponentially greater than yours as an investment right.
Benefit to all, harm to none.
And focus now.
Yep. So let's take a look at this one. Congressman reveals what NPR and PBS were doing instead of reporting on Texas floods. And this is, they're going to start talking about ICE agents later on too, but we're just going to listen to the first part about the NPR and PBS.
Republican Congressman Chip Roy of the great state of Texas, member of the House Budget, Rules, and Judiciary Committees. Great to see you today, as always. First of all, tell me the good news that's left in this bill.
Yeah, good morning, Harris. Great to be on. What we saw the Senate do yesterday was very encouraging. While they removed a handful of things regarding PEPFAR that we think was more important to be in the bill, at the end of the day, it's still over $9 billion.
$9 billion. Wow. What could you do with $9 billion, Russ?
A whole lot of good.
I could make a lot. I could buy a lot of assets and make a lot of people trustees in one trust.
Significant reductions using the power of the president through rescissions combined with the power of Congress under the Budget Control Act to rescind spending in order to make sure that we're actually doing what we should do from a budget perspective and try to reduce wasteful spending.
Wasteful spending on people that are not qualified, paying people to do a job when they sit there and tell people that I'm just doing my job, and they're not doing their job because they're not qualified to begin with. They don't know the job. They're not competent. They don't have the knowledge, skills, and education to do so. This is why I'm talking about that education. You have to know the job. And in order for you to step up and become mayor, you have to know the job of the mayor. When you start learning these jobs, I'm telling you, it's just a matter of doing the same thing over and over again, but wearing a different hat. Doing things in good faith and fair dealings, because no man anything but to love one another. For to love one another is to fulfill the law. So therefore, do unto your neighbor as you would have them do unto you. Go ahead.
Well, I just, when you really start to look at this stuff, a lot of these people that end up in DC, they start off with saying what they're going to do, what the spirit of their mission is. But all of a sudden, it seems when they get in leadership up there, that spirit of the mission changes. So they said one thing and did another. So their actions don't, coincide with what they say.
Well, and we have to remember too that when we're talking about something like this, we really are, like Trump said, talking about draining the swamp. So what we have is a bunch of people in there that are in cohorts already. And when you bring in one man that wants to drain that swamp, they're all going to be in cohorts against him. So this is job safety. They're looking out for their own ass. And it doesn't matter whether they know their job or not. They're going to do what they need to do to get him out.
Their asses will get off the couch now, won't they?
I wouldn't be surprised. And this is not a prophecy. This is not anything but my own interpretation of events and my speculation that I wouldn't be surprised if somebody tries to make another attempt or two or more on Trump's life, and that they might actually be successful during his presidency. We might lose this, quote, President Trump during his presidency just because of the way things happen. And I'm not calling for it or anything. I don't vote. Never have voted. I don't care about the president. The only thing I care about is the knowledge of the people. When it comes to these bills and everything that they're putting out, we have to understand what it says right there is a $9 billion clawback bill. In other words, you're rescinding the funding. And that's what I'm talking about in correcting the records. It's a clawback. You're going to bring back all the monies that you funded this government with, because that's in effect what you did. Despite the fact that you lied, you in that lie is what provided the funding. Now you get that funding back in the correcting the records. Certain amount of it should be returned as a remainder. This is according to a state settlement trust law. And that's what we're dealing with. If public service is a public trust.
Right. So wouldn't the business be protecting the trust? I
Right.
mean, in that one mission, the spirit of that one mission, wouldn't
Right,
it be to protect everything?
Right. The leaders, the trustees are the ones that protect the trust. They have
So I
to be the
agree.
leaders. They have to
Yep.
be the leaders. They have to be the ones that bring the law, because they're accountable to the law. So they must know the law. This is why I'm doing this. This is the most
Obedient to it.
imperative part. This is the most imperative part about law, is the teaching. How do you expect your children to know the law if you never teach them the law? And you just feed them that fish every day. You feed them the fish of paying tribute to a false patriarch. Here, he provided this fish. You got to have a Social Security number to get a job so you can fish. So you can get a license to fish. Isn't fishing a necessity of life for some people? You know, those that don't partake in that system of paying tribute to a false patriarch. What about their necessity of life rather than admiralty maritime contracts? If they're not involved in those and don't require an oath or a license, then what can anybody say about restricting his necessity of life to go down to the river and catch any species of animal on land, in air, or the rivers, according to Genesis? See, our dominion is not over the animals. It's our knowledge in being stewards, that when we take an animal for our own sustenance, we don't take hordes of them to feed a bunch of other people a fish for a day. We teach them to fish for themselves and to carry the amount of fish that will suffice for them and their needs. Prosper in abundance, not destroy in fraud, waste, and abuse.
USAID spending that has been now very public.
That's what they're doing to the American people. They're destroying the American people through fraud, waste, and abuse. We don't need it. And the only way the American people are going to be able to get away from it is by standing up and manning that post. The only way you can do that is education, folks. You have to know.
Publicly shamed in terms of the kinds of spending. $32,000 for a transgender comic book in Peru. Just dozens of examples of just.
You could put out a transgender comic book and get $32,000, folks. Do you understand what they just said?
You can't make this shit up, man. You just can't make this shit up.
Fraught with waste. And we're removing all of that. And this is stuff we've been working on for years. My friend Eli Crane offered an amendment 2 years ago in appropriations to remove all of that. Interestingly, we only had about 104 Republicans vote for it and had 12 or 14 vote against it. Now things have changed. President Trump's leadership, our efforts in the.
I'm betting that if you posed that you wanted to put out a transgender comic book down in, say, Belize or something like that, I'll bet you could get better private funding and come up with 3.2 million rather than 32,000. I'm pretty sure of it. That's how wide and far that venue has spread. Worldwide, you could do a private funding market and get 3.2 million. I guarantee you, for a transgender comic book. I'm sure of it.
Crazy the reach they have, ain't it?
Amazing.
Freedom Caucus and conservatives. Now people, I think, understand this waste needs to go away. The efforts that Elon and Doge did to highlight it. So I'm glad to see the Senate do it. We're removing that funding, the funding for NPR and PBS. I mean, listen, Harris, I was just in Texas with the floods that were ravaging the communities that I represent, and they were more interested in trying to get people to call their House members and senators to save NPR and PBS than they were on reporting on what was going on with the floods in Central Texas. So we know they're biased. They don't need to be funded by taxpayer dollars. Now we can save money and actually do what the American people sent us here to do. So hopefully.
And pretty much he's spot on, in my opinion, again, because because when it comes down to it, the need for it isn't there. The need for funding for certain things is not there. And that's what shows us that a lot of people are acting on their feelers and their abuse of authority to run things through to get that funding without proper due process. And it's simply because we have a population that is overwhelmingly cognitive dissonant in their comfort and convenience, believing that the government will, is, and has provided and done well. When we have objective reality that shows us time and again, history repeats itself, that the people are not actually quite so satisfied. Every time something changes, they want to blame it on somebody else. That's your fault, folks. And Joseph R. says, gotcha, El Perro. You absolutely hate Trump. Emotions over rational. I don't hate nobody. I've never voted because I know the Electoral College and how it works. And it's based on their opinions. And if the people's opinion matches their opinion, they'll pass it through. If it doesn't, they pass through their vote. Has nothing to do with emotions. Go ahead.
Correct me if I'm wrong. But if you put all your faith and trust in strangers, including your children's futures, would that be mental?
Well, yeah, that's what we got. Well, that's what we have here when we have people that are listening to NPR and PBS. How many people remember listening to PBS as a kid, watching TV, and the PBS came on and gave you a good educational series? And they don't talk about the real world aspects. They provide an educational propaganda. And that's what he's saying. We don't need the propaganda through NPR and PBS because that's what they're doing. It's an educational propaganda that provides cognitive dissonance. We have to get over it.
Yeah, I believe that PBS is tied to the record.
Absolutely, it's part of the part of the nonprofit organization that help perpetrate that they're voluntarily doing things that are good for the people when it's not. It's propaganda.
Yeah,
we'll get that passed in the next 48 hours.
That is a really heart-scratching example that you gave.
Yep.
I mean, that's hard to take. Look, I was just catching this because you mentioned PEPFAR, and I know that Senator Thune and maybe others had talked about exempting HIV and AIDS funding from the planned spending cuts. I think you were able to do that, correct?
Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, the legislation that we passed out of the House still preserved most of PEPFAR, but it was going after some of the more political components of it. I haven't seen specifically what the Senate left and took out. But at the end of the day, they cleaned up a little bit of that and they did what they did. We've got a $9 billion bill that's going to do what it needs to do on many issues.
Yeah, and you set a precedent here.
So you understand, it's still a $9 billion bill. What they've done is just reallocated the funds elsewhere and dismantled a lot of things in doing so. So the $9 billion is still funded. There is no clawback, as they claim. Okay, they're dispersing the $9 billion to the other parties and everything and programs that it's been delegated to.
Yep.
I mean, Doge is, for now here to stay. So we move forward. Well, look, you were talking about kind of what's been going on in your state, and we continue to pray for courage.
And so it's just understanding, folks, the reality is, again, when I'm talking about my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge, and therefore the true benefit is the knowledge. Take advantage of that benefit, and that's what you pass on to your children as inheritance. The legacy. The legacy is the story, and the inheritance is what they can make tangible out of that story. The oral histories from yourself, rather than some fake history from a false patriarch placing the victor over the victims.
Well, I believe, wouldn't it be that these people that are in government and the ones that should be the true, leading with good faith, shouldn't that be considered teachings because they're informing? So shouldn't it all be looked at like that? And they're
Absolutely.
broadcasting, so they're planting seeds, which are thoughts in people's minds. And
that's what I'm telling you. They do look at it like that. And they would
Yeah.
rather teach it the population propaganda than allow the population to learn on their own autodidactically and believe that they know better. Because when you have a population that believes that the government is providing the best education, that's false. That's what they're portraying is in this hold no child back, is that they're providing the best public education because your child isn't going to get left out. Okay? That's propaganda, folks. That's triggering people into believing that they have to have that education. Otherwise, their child will fall behind. No, you can provide a better education than that public education system by exponential terms if you understood yourself how to do that. And again, that's the research. Don't believe me. Don't believe the neighbor. Don't believe the government, for crying out loud. Don't even believe your mother who did educate you. Go beyond that. Push those borders. Have that critical thinking to look outside the box and have that abstract thinking to come up with novel ideas. That's what's so important about children. When we have this and it's so disgusting. When we have this abortion law that says we can kill children just because we want to and we don't think we can raise them. And that child, if he was brought into the world, would be a perfectly viable human being, not only a perfectly viable, but possibly one of the most intelligent and bringing some of the most advanced technologies. Yet we want to kill them before we even give them that chance.
Yeah.
That's disgusting. It's disgusting. So anyway, let's take a look at the next one as it relates to Trump and the Epstein files, because I want to point something out here, folks. When it comes to that good faith and fair dealings. Okay. And the guy that was talking about, draining the swamp, then when it comes to exposing things through that Doji thing, and he doesn't really want to expose it, we really have to start thinking about this stuff. And this is why I say I've never voted. I don't trust these people. They do at their whim what's good for them. It's a marketing thing, just like Linda McMahon. It's all marketing. It's commerce. The United States is a corporation. Okay?
As the president grows increasingly frustrated with focus on the Jeffrey Epstein files and pressure from some of his own supporters to release more information.
It's all been a big hoax. It's perpetrated by the Democrats, and some stupid Republicans and foolish Republicans fall into the net.
The Wall Street Journal alleges Trump wrote Epstein a birthday note in 2003, included in a collection of letters with a hand-drawn sketch appearing to be the outline of a naked woman. The Journal says the letter ends with, quote, "Happy birthday, and may every day be another."
Come on. What the hell? And I don't have my video on. My memory has been cleared. Shows I've got plenty of space.
I hear you fine.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's my video card on the computer itself. So I might have to try to get another computer. Speaking of that,
Another wonderful secret.
there we go.
President Trump calls the letter fake, writing on social media, "These are not my words, not the way I talk." He's now threatening to sue the outlet and owner Rupert Murdoch. Hours after the Wall Street Journal report, President Trump ordered Attorney General Pam Bondi to seek to release pertinent grand jury records from the accused sex traffickers case, which Bondi says she will ask the court to do.
So in his own defense, he's asking that certain details be brought forth. Okay, is this good faith and fair dealings? It might seem like it, but only on the heels of what seemed like wasn't good faith and fair dealings to some people, because he was trying to downplay it and say it's not important, it's a hoax and this and that. Well, we know it's not a hoax, okay? What he's portraying as a hoax is his involvement, okay? So again, if he's going to come in and drain the swamp and he doesn't have involvement, then why even placate that it's a hoax? Just put it out there. See, that's what I do. You want to run your mouth about me and say I've done something bad? I'm going to put it right out there exactly how it is so the people can discern for themselves. Okay? You go straight to the source. Well, who's the source? Ghislaine Maxwell. They've got her in custody, so they do have a list.
Never seen this type of request before.
Mitchell Epner, a former federal prosecutor, says a judge will make the final decision and the request could take months or more. And it's unclear how much of what the DOJ has it will seek to release.
It could be very.
So even if it is released, understand it's going to be months or more. And you know what happened in Kennedy? See, things like that just don't get released, folks. They get reported on by Wall Street Journal and things like that. They like to take fake information and put it out there as if though it's true and stand by their word and try to force somebody to bring it out. Until then, it's implicating President Trump as being the bad guy. You can imply me as the bad guy all you want. Maybe I am. Maybe that's why I wear this short mustache. See, that's something you ought to think about. Am I really the bad guy? Or are you bearing false witness?
Right. Maybe you should just tell us what's the spirit of your allegations.
Yep, absolutely. You know, we've got to get over this thing about the, or come to the realization of what this thing is about the message and the messenger. Your actions speak louder than the words. And why are you listening to a messenger and not taking in the message? That's where the education is. Again, on both sides of the track. I don't care who the messenger is. I don't care if it's Trump. I don't care if he is guilty. I've got to hear what he says so I can hear the lies, the ill faith.
But it is not, and it is certainly far from everything that they could make public.
The push to release all Epstein files has divided Republicans after the DOJ issued a memo this month saying Epstein did not have an incriminating client list. Natalie Brand, CBS News, the White House.
Of course he didn't. Again, like I said, they have Ghislaine Maxwell. That is the list. Okay? This next one. Before we get on to it, you got anything to say about that, brother?
Yeah, no, I'm good.
Okay. So this next one goes back. We touched on the computer language and programming and everything earlier. And this is a warning about AI. I want everybody to pay attention. because it goes right back to that element that I was talking about. When you give these people your data, you know, those data elements, it's the storage of information in their system, and you're the one that put it there. Okay? Just like this internet. When I come up here and do these streams, I have to make an important caveat that this is just my opinion. I'm not trying to educate anybody. I'm just showing my firsthand experience from my research and what I've come to think about it. I give sources and everything. I correlate it throughout various different jurisdictions so you can see it. And again, I can explain it to you, but I can't comprehend it for you. So please pay attention to this short video as it talks about the dark warning of AI.
The guy in this clip you're about to see is a guy by the name of Geoffrey Hinton, aka the godfather of AI. And he has something interesting to say. And I want you guys to take a listen and let me know what you think.
Your Majesties, Your Royal Highnesses, Excellencies, dear laureates, ladies and gentlemen. This year, the Nobel Committees in Physics and Chemistry have recognized the dramatic progress being made in a new form of artificial intelligence that uses artificial neural networks to learn how to solve difficult computational problems. This new form of AI,
different computational problems. That's it. It is limited. It has no emotions. It has no instinct. It has no real imagination. Nothing. It has to have input. You have to put data elements into it. People, understand what you're doing when you put data elements into any system that is not yours.
Somebody has to give it life.
excels at modeling human intuition rather than human reasoning.
Excels at modeling human intuition. In other words, it tries to repeat it. It tries to imitate it. It cannot. And it does not deal with human reasoning. It's all input. Nothing else. Has to be computational. It has no power unless you give it power.
And it will enable us.
It has, like Russ says, it has no life unless you give it life. This is necromancy, folks. This is speaking with dead.
To create highly intelligent and knowledgeable assistants who will increase productivity in almost all industries. If the benefits of the increased productivity can be shared equally, it will be a wonderful advance for all humanity.
If it could be shared equally. See, that's the socialist idea. And it actually is a good concept. It's just that it's never carried out properly. There always seems to be one group of people that thinks they have to have authoritative control in order to disperse equally. This is what I was talking about earlier with your private trusts and dealing with each other and naming each other co-trustees of those little private trusts. Your greatest power is at the local community where local people get together and provide those trusts to preserve and protect their own communities through their own exchanges locally. When you start handing it all off to the international venue where you have that one body of people that says they have authoritative control over those disbursements for social equality, you are falling into a false socialist concept.
Unfortunately, the rapid progress in AI comes with many short-term risks. It has already created divisive echo chambers.
That's safe space. It's an echo. See, I'm not going to echo nothing here. Like I said, I'm going to show you my research and the sources and my interpretation. And again, I can explain it to you, but I cannot comprehend it for you. That's why you have to do your research and see if it's applicable to yourself in your own life.
By offering people content that makes them indignant. It is already being used by authoritarian governments for massive surveillance and by cybercriminals for phishing attacks. In the near future, AI may be used to create terrible new viruses and horrendous lethal weapons that decide by themselves who to kill or maim. All of these short-term risks require urgent and forceful attention from governments and international organizations. There is also a longer-term existential threat that will arise when we create digital beings that are more intelligent than ourselves.
Won't happen. Again, it is imperative to understand this computer system is an input system. It cannot survive on its own. It cannot be more intelligent than mankind. Mankind programmed it. Just like this Christian concept of God and his knowledge or its knowledge, however you want to look at it, it is greater than the all of mankind. AI cannot supersede that. Never. That is a projection of a new God. Blasphemy. You are the input.
We have no idea whether we can stay in control. But we now have evidence that if they're created by companies motivated by short-term profits, our safety will not be the top priority. We urgently need research on how to prevent these new beings from wanting to take control. They are no longer science fiction. Thank you. We have no idea whether we can stay in control. But we now have evidence that if they're created by companies motivated by short-term profits, our safety will not be the top priority. We urgently need research on how to prevent these new beings from wanting to take control. They are no longer science fiction. Thank you. We have no idea whether we can stay in control. But we now have evidence that if they're created by companies motivated by short-term profits, our safety will not be the top priority. We urgently need research on how to prevent these new beings from wanting to take control. They are no longer science fiction. We have no idea whether we can stay in control.
And that's my point, folks. You've already lost control. This is evident by the overbearing government we have and the allowances for these corporate entities. United States is a corporation itself. We have to understand this thing about we don't know if we can keep control. You have to learn how to take control. That's your education. Once you have that education, then you start passing it on so that your younger generation can maintain that control. That's how you maintain control. Again, you don't give it life. You understand what you're giving it and make sure that it doesn't overbear that. Your mother's bare life in her labors. Actions speak louder than words. Are your keyboards going to speak louder than you? When you put that data element in there, is it going to lie about yourself? It's going to show that you don't know yourself. That's for damn sure. What do you think, Russ? You got control?
I believe I do. I know one thing. If all this is a record, a lot of people's got a shitty resume.
Well, yeah, and this is what I say about as well as people that want to carry documentation. I saw a video yesterday. Some guy from Canada brought his exotic car down to the States, and he carried documentation with him to explain everything. And the officer absolutely knew what he was doing. He knew he didn't have a driver's license, yet the guy showed him a driver's license. He didn't have registration, yet the guy showed him registration. He didn't have insurance, yet the guy showed him insurance. It's just that the officer wouldn't accept any of those forms because it's not the normal form. And this is why I say I don't care what form you're looking for. I don't have to carry it on me. That shows me I'm in custody of something other than my own words. Let my yea be my yea, my nay be my nay. And if you want to write it down, I'll speak it, because I don't need to remember any lies. I can just speak the truth and it flows from my mouth. That's the important thing. We have to learn to stop lying. We have to learn what those lies are. That resident, United States citizen, are those true? Or are you applying them to yourself and bearing false witness in that record and not even know it? You're unconscious of your lie. Therefore, anything that would be an implied contract is an unconscionable contract. Come to the reality, face up to your wrongs, repent, and forgive others who have made the same mutual mistakes. Oh, no man anything but to love one another. For to love one another is to fulfill the law. In beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. That's his law. And he wrote it on your heart. Anyway,
See,
that brings...
when I see all of this, it's wrapped around God, family, and country. So, you know, it's hard to take out it'd be easy to take out the country, but the only way you could do that is destroy the man and the woman.
Right. And see, that's the thing about
those teachings in that foundation of that home. You know what I'm saying?
That's the thing about setting thine house in order. When you set thine house in order, you realize there is no house for government. Government is essentially the activities that are fomented by the men. And that's why I say your actions speak louder than words. I agree with it. And tomorrow's video, I'm going to do a correlation of how we see this in the scriptures, how people follow that direction, that directive that scriptures give us for that government, such as Romans 13. There is no power but that which is ordained of God. And then it goes on to talk about the administrative courts. And then it goes on to talk about the commandments. So we have to understand that the scriptures, like I said in the previous series of videos, the Public Law 97-280 recognizes the scriptures as the foundation of the principles that men bring forth in their government. The principles are that first 10 amendments as a set of protections. The principle is that you have a freedom of association, a freedom of religion. The principle is you have to speak your voice. The principle is that when you speak your voice, it's the other people's right to know. In that, the other people and yourself are a gathering. You have the principle of peaceful assembly to discuss this stuff. Commentary, criticism, and educational purposes. Look at it. There's case law on it. That's why I run it at the bottom of my screen, every stream. You have a right to speak out. In that, you have to educate yourself on how to speak. This is the diplomatic etiquette. When you're talking to other people, you have to know how to address them. How do they prefer to be addressed? If you're talking to the president, it's Sir President Trump, or Mr. President Trump, or Mr. Trump. Generally, they like to be called president. Even after they become president and have finished with their office, they're still known as President Carter, President Nixon. All about education, people, and I urge you to start taking that by the reins yourself. Any words on the way out, Russ?
No, it's always good to hang out, as always. I wish everyone well and better days ahead, I believe. So prepare for the change. Be the
Yeah,
change you wish to see, because it's going to get
Yeah.
brighter.
And that's an interesting note right there, folks. Listen to him. Be the change you wish to see, because that's what I'm talking about. In order to see a brighter generation, you have to be a part of the education of that generation to make them brighter. This is the principle of a father passing on his legacy and the inheritance of his trust to his heirs. He doesn't want his heirs to be limited to what he has succeeded in. He wants them to expand. He wants them to grow that familial empire. He wants to build that family into a nation of its own, just like the scriptures say. Go forth and make nations of men. Those nations are founded in the scriptures through those teachings that teach us how to set up those nations. So again, I'll be talking about that tomorrow. Thanks for joining me tonight. Again, Russ, John, thanks for stopping up. I'm glad you were here. Disciple of the Messiah, Freedom Fighter, Joseph R., Laura, Bear Jew, Mary, Joshua Jonio. Appreciate
One
it.
more thing.
Anybody else? Go ahead.
I just wanted to remind everyone, the more of us that follow that path in life, the brighter that light gets.
Yeah,
Much
the
love.
more we open that path and we're able to see that light. Absolutely. So, and I want to remind everybody, hit that like, share, and subscribe button. There is a PayPal link down there for anybody that wants to share some love. Every little bit is appreciated. Please use friends and family. And you guys know me. I love you, but I don't give a rat's ass whether you love me back. That's to say, I don't care if you hate me. I don't care if you don't respect me. And that's on you. So may your God bless you and love you. In the meantime, you're fired. We'll see you next time.